Somewhere in the American South tonight, a family is sitting down to dinner under a name they've carried for 300 years. And they think they know where it came from. A clan, a tartan, some green hill back in Ireland. They're wrong, most of them anyway, because the real story folded inside a Scots-Irish surname is stranger than any family legend. And it starts on a border so lawless that a man there didn't answer to England or Scotland. He answered to his name. Those same names crossed an ocean, climbed into the Appalachian mountains, dug in and never left. 10 names, 10 secrets buried inside them. Watch for your own. It might be closer than you think. Let's get one thing straight first, because nobody ever tells you this part. Scots-Irish is almost a lie. Or, being fair, a shortcut. These people weren't really Irish, and a lot of them weren't even lowland Scots. Here's what actually happened. Early 1600s, King James has 2 headaches at once. A violent, ungovernable stretch of border between Scotland and England, and a hostile Ulster he needs bodies to hold down. His solution? Ship the troublemakers across the water and plant them in the north of Ireland. Lowland Scots, sure, but also Northern English, a scattering of Highlanders, even a few Gaelic Irish who married straight into the mix. Then 100 years pass, the rents climb, the harvests fail, and their grandchildren pour across the Atlantic and push into the one place nobody else wanted, the mountains. So Scots-Irish isn't a people, it's a blend, one that tucked its seams away inside the surnames. Hold on to that as we count down, because it's the whole trick. The name is the door, what's waiting behind it is the surprise.
Number 10, Wilson. We start with the plainest name on the whole list, and plain, it turns out, is the perfect disguise. Wilson feels timeless, almost invisible, one of the most common surnames in all of Ulster. Except it isn't Irish, not even a clan name really, it just means son of Will. Will, as in William, the most popular first name in the entire medieval English-speaking world. It came into Ireland with the lowland Scots and northern English of the plantation, and it spread so fast that within a couple of generations it looked like it had always been there. One Wilson grandfather left Dergalt, a little place near Strabane, County Tyrone, back in 1807. His grandson? President Woodrow Wilson.
Number 9, Bell. Bell sounds gentle, doesn't it? A church bell, a bell ringer at evening. And that's actually one honest theory of where the name comes from. Out on the border, though, Bell was anything but gentle. The Bells were an Annandale riding family, cattle raiders in steel bonnets, allied one year and feuding the next, all across the West March. They planted deep in Ulster, then turned up as one of the most common names in the southern mountains. So if your family spells it Bell, that soft little meaning might be covering for a very hard history.
Number 8, Kennedy. Now here is a name everybody is sure they have already figured out. Kennedy. Irish, obviously, Camelot, Boston, the old country. But listen to what it actually means. Kennedy comes from the Gaelic O Sineide, and depending on which scholar you trust, that root lands somewhere between helmet-headed, fierce-headed, and less flattering, plain old ugly head. There are even 2 completely separate Kennedy lines that have nothing to do with each other, an Irish one tied to the family of Brian Boru and a Scottish one out of Carrick in Ayrshire. A lot of the Kennedys who came through Ulster were Scots. In fact, they'd crossed that narrow 20-mile channel from Galloway and Ayr. Same name, 2 homelands, and a meaning you will never ever see stitched onto the family crest.
Number 7, Graham. The Grahams were the terror of the western border, and the Crown hated them so thoroughly it tried to wipe the name off the map. When James finally cracked down, Grahams were rounded up, shipped off, and in some cases flat out forbidden to call themselves Graham ever again, so they cheated. Some of them just spelled it backwards, Maharg, and carried right on. The name outlived the king who tried to bury it, crossed to Ulster, crossed to America, settled itself all across the southern mountains. You can even hear it in the man who patented the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell. 2 border names riding in one signature. Number 6, Reagan. You probably didn't expect this one on a Scots-Irish list at all, and honestly, that's exactly the point. Reagan looks like pure Gaelic Irish, a variant of O Reagan. And look what's hiding in the meaning. Descendant of Reagan. Reagan being an old personal name for someone impulsive, furious even, because the Ulster melting pot didn't only pull from the border country, it swept in Gaelic Irish names too, and carried them west with everybody else until one furious little name washed up in a small Illinois town, and a few generations on, in the White House. Number 5, Campbell. Time for a confession, because this channel will always give you the straight version. Campbell is not a border name. The Campbells were the great Highland clan of Argyll, a world of sea locks and war galleys, a long way from the muddy cattle paths of the frontier. So how did it become one of the most common Scots-Irish names in America? Simple. The plantation didn't only empty the lowlands. A whole body of Highlanders crossed into Ulster too, especially out of Argyll, and they brought their names right into the current. So when you meet a mountain Campbell, you're not meeting a Reiver at all. You're meeting the Highlands folded in and carried along with the rest. Number 4, Crockett. Everybody knows Davy, king of the wild frontier, dead at the Alamo, surely about as Scots-Irish as a man can get. Well, the Crockett name actually started in France. It began as something like Crockettain, a Huguenot family, Protestants who fled Catholic persecution, washed up in Ulster like so many others, and married into the Scots around them. By the time the family reached Tennessee, that French origin had faded to a rumor. French root, Ulster soil, American legend, the whole melting pot packed into one surname. Number 3, Calhoun. A grand old southern name, this one sounds like it was cut straight from Carolina marble. But Calhoun is really just a worn-down spelling of a Scottish territorial name, Colquhoun, from the lands along the bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Say the Scottish spelling out loud Calhoun, and you'll catch the American one already hiding inside it. 300 years of tired clerks sanded Colquhoun down into Calhoun, and a Highland place name quietly became a backcountry family. Number 2, Polk. Here's one you would genuinely never guess by looking at it. Polk. Short, blunt, 4 letters. Doesn't look remotely Scottish, but Polk is a stub, what's left of Pollock, a place name from lands near Glasgow. The Ulster Presbyterians who carried it just filed it down, generation after generation, until Pollock wore all the way to Polk. And one of those families gave the country James K. Polk, its 11th president, the man who stretched America clear to the Pacific. Number 1, Jackson. And right at the front of the whole procession stands the plainest looking name of them all, Jackson. Jack's son, a patronymic so ordinary it hardly seems worth stopping for, but that plainness is the story. Andrew Jackson's parents left Bonybefor, a village just outside Carrickfergus, County Antrim, in 1765, 2 years before he was born in a backcountry log cabin. First president born in a log cabin, first one elected from west of the Appalachians. The closest thing this country has ever had to an Ulster-born president. His enemies called him King Andrew. The mountains called him Old Hickory. From a cottage in Antrim to the White House in a single generation, the most ordinary name on the list, carrying the most extraordinary road. So what does the blood actually say after all these centuries? The Scots-Irish who climbed up into Appalachia, married within their own world, generation after generation, back in the hollows, far from the coast. Geneticists have a name for what that does, a founder effect. Keep a population isolated long enough, marrying its own, and it leaves a distinct, traceable signature in the DNA. And that's exactly what shows up today. The consumer testing companies can now map specific Appalachian genetic communities, clusters tight enough to see precisely because those founding families stayed so tightly bound for so long. But let's end on the honest note. A common surname is not proof of a particular line. Sharing a name with Jackson or Crockett does not put you in their family tree. Thousands of unrelated households carried these names out of Ulster. The name is only the door. The research is the house. Parish register, ship manifest, census page, one generation at a time. So if your name was on this list or if it wasn't, and now you're sitting there wondering, that's the thread worth pulling. Subscribe and we'll keep tracing the bloodlines and the buried surnames of the frontier, one name at a time.